Madam, please continue.
Is my voice audible, sir?
Madam, please unmute yourself. Madam, please unmute yourself.
A very good morning to everyone with great pleasure. Today is a special day. Today is International Day of Happiness. Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you are doing, you will be successful. Myself, Srimati B. Srivalli, Assistant Professor of Botany, JDC, Gambhirapet. I take this opportunity to welcome beloved principal, respected resource person, all dignitaries, research scholars, assistant professors, lecturers, teachers, students of various colleges and various departments, participants from various colleges and various states of India to this webinar. Thank you for registering. More than 800 registrations done from different states and union territories. I extend my warm welcome on behalf of Department of Botany, GDC Gambhirapet. We are conducting today a webinar on biofertilizers and organic farming for sustainable agriculture. So this topic is not only for semester students and examinations, but also it is very much helpful in human health and soil health also for future generations. First of all, I would like to invite our college young and dynamic principal, Sri Pitla Das Garu, who made his mark in the field of administration by sincerity, regularity, devotion, and dedication in his duties. We welcome you, sir. Now I request our principal, Sri Pitla Das Garu, sir, please convey a message regarding this webinar.
Good morning to all. I am P. Das from JDC Gambhirapet, Rajan Assistant. I would like to congratulate my colleague Srimati B. Srivalli, Assistant Professor of Botany, for arranging an informative lecture webinar. I take an opportunity to thank each and every person who is present here or Zoom. It is my privilege to speak a few words in front of my dignitaries who are present in this webinar. I would like to announce proudly that today's speaker and guest of honor, Sri Padala Tirupati Garu, is an eminent researcher in botany. On behalf of JDC Gambhirapet, I welcome you. Once again, I appreciate Srimati Srivalli for taking such a great initiation and conduct this webinar. So, the college is located in a project. It is growing leaves and ponds. They are making every effort to provide quality education to our students. In this busy world, most of the people value the essence of science as per my knowledge. Today, topic is much relevant to the daily life. One thing I found that people hardly consider as a result, they are taking the help of the studies. When
Madam, please mute on unmute.
we are when we are depending on outside food, we are prone to cancers. We are depending on artificial food, on adopting chemical food. That's why we choose the topic. We should avoid the chemicals, food, and encourage on organic farming. Thank you once again. ఈ రోజు చూసినట్టయితే రసాయనిక ఎరువుల వల్ల భూమి వాతావరణ కాలుష్యం కావడమే కాకుండా రసాయనిక ఎరువుల యొక్క అవశేషాలు మానవ శరీరానికి
మానవ శరీరంలోకి వెళ్ళి వైద్య శాస్త్రానికి అంతుపట్టనటువంటి ఎన్నో రకాల వ్యాధులు ప్రబలుతున్నటువంటి ఈ తరుణంలో మరొక్కసారి మన ప్రకృతి వ్యవసాయం వైపు మనమంతా తిరిగి చూడాల్సినటువంటి అవసరం ఏర్పడ్డది. కాబట్టి ప్రతి ఒక్కరు బాధ్యతాయుతంగా సేంద్రియ వ్యవసాయ విధానాలను ప్రచారం చేయాల్సినటువంటి అవసరం ఉంది. ఈ తరుణంలో ఈ అంశం మీద మనకు మాట్లాడడానికి వచ్చినటువంటి తిరుపతి గారిని అభినందిస్తూ కొనసాగించాల్సిందిగా కోరుతున్నాను.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. You always supporting us and give encouragement every moment to conduct this type of programs. Thank you very much, sir. Now, I would like to welcome our young and the most dynamic resource person, eminent keynote speaker, Sri Padala Tirupati Garu, Assistant Professor of Botany, Head of the Department, GDC Women Jagitya. He completed his master's degree in botany in 2003 and he got gold medal in MSc Botany. So he also got first rank in MED from Osmania University and also he completed MA Psychology from Osmania University. He pursuing PhD in Kakatiya University. His professional qualifications are UGC NET in 2009 and 2012, AP set in 2013, both AP and Telangana set 2014, Telangana set in 2016. He has 17 years teaching experience and 5 years research experience. He published 2 papers. In addition to that, he conducted 4 national webinars on different topics. He conducted 44 online quizzes and more than 200 webinars attended, 10 FDPs attended. Along with this, some additional duties are in his college, NSSC Program Officer, Unit 3, Telanganaku Haritaharam in charge, Eco Club, Red Class Society, IQAC, and NAT committee member. Today, we have taken up a hot topic, biofertilizers and organic farming for sustainable agriculture, which is necessary for SEM 3 and SEM 1 students. It is very much useful for examination point of view, for forthcoming examinations, not only examinations, but also it is very useful for everybody, human health as well as soil health. This program is aimed to give some basic and extensive ideas on biofertilizers and organic farming. I request all the participants to use this webinar well and get benefited to the maximum extent. I hope I chose a worthful resource person to this program. Thank you all. Now I request Sri Padala Tirupati Garu please start the today's topic.
Thank you very much, madam,
Thank you, sir.
for those wonderful words. First of all, I congratulate the organizers of Government Degree College, Gambhiropet, Rajanna Sirisilla, Telangana, and led by dynamic principal and young and dynamic personal principal, my beloved brother, Sri Pitla Das Garu, and today's national webinar convener, Srimati Bojja Srivalli Madam Garu, my role model and ideal personality to the entire women society, and also organizing committee members of Government Degree College, Gambhiropet, to organize the webinar on biofertilizers and organic farming for sustainable agriculture. This is a very, very useful topic to the entire the society for today's contemporary scenario, our human health, even though animal health and entire living organism health and hygiene point of view. So I am very much thankful for associating myself on a resource person on this August webinar. I am very happy and thankful to Madam for choosing this wonderful topic for encouraging and enlightening for the students and also faculty members also. Madam has told me today morning, more than 30% of the participants of our entire nation, they are belongs to our community. That is assistant professors of different degree colleges and universities. I am very thankful to you, Madam.
Thank you, sir.
Madam, can I start this session? Can I start the...
Okay, sir.
Right. So today,
Okay.
today's national webinar, that is biofertilizers and organic farming, biofertilizers and organic farming for sustainable agriculture, organized by Department of Botany, Government Degree College, Gambhiropet, Rajanna Sirisilla, Telangana, India. So myself, Padala Tirupati, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, Government Degree College for Women, Jagitya, Telangana. So biofertilizers. In this topic, a biofertilizer is a substance. What is biofertilizers? Biofertilizers is a substance which contain living microorganisms. When applied to seed, when applied to plant surfaces, or when applied to soil, colonizes the rhizosphere or the interior of the plant and promotes growth by increasing the supply or availability of primary nutrients to the host plant. ఎప్పుడైతే ఈ జీవ ఎరువులను మనము మొక్కల భాగాలకి కానీ విత్తనాలకి కానీ లేదా నేలకి కానీ మనం అందజేసినప్పుడు భూమిలో మొక్కలకి అత్యంత దగ్గరగా ఎలాంటి హాని చేయకుండా ఏది పోషక మూలకాలను అందించేటువంటి ఎరువులను మనము జీవ ఎరువులుగా చెప్పుకోవచ్చు. మరి సాధారణ ఎరువులకు ఈ ఎరువులకు ఉన్నటువంటి తేడా ఏంటంటే the biofertilizers contain the living microorganisms. This is the most variation between the biofertilizers or inorganic fertilizers. So the biofertilizers are add nutrients through the natural process of nitrogen fixation, solubilizing phosphorus and stimulating plant growth through the synthesis of growth promoting substances. Synthesis of growth promoting substances. So in this point of view, what we can say that whenever we are apply the biofertilizers to the plants or the soil surface or soil, the insoluble phosphorus or insoluble nutrients is going to soluble state, and which is very, very easy to access or absorb the plant rhizosphere or the plant roots or the different nutrients. And what is biofertilizer? So biofertilizers are natural fertilizers that are microbial inoculants of the bacteria algae, and fungi, or if they are separately or in combination, which may help biological nitrogen fixation for the benefit of plants. They help build up the soil microflora and by the soil health. Biofertilizers also include organic fertilizers. That means manure. That means manure, cattle dung, fish dung, cattle dung, different fertilizers. Then use of biofertilizers is recommended for improving the soil fertility in organic farming. Organic. Then what are the types of the biofertilizers? So biofertilizers including whether the bacterial or fungal or algal biofertilizers, fungal biofertilizers, aquatic fern, that is a fern is also used as a biofertilizers, even though earthworms. So these are the organisms or microorganisms useful for the making of the biofertilizers for the usage of the soluble nutrients, very easy access to the all plant roots surfaces or root rhizosphere. So in this image we are observed, this is the rhizobium and this is the Azotobacter, Azospirillum. These belongs to the bacterial biofertilizers, and this image shows about the Azolla, aquatic fern Azolla, and this is the cyanobacteria blue-green algae, which is also used as a biofertilizer. And this is the worm fungi. This is a sheathing mycorrhizal fungi. Worm fungi and sheathing mycorrhizal fungi. It's a fungal biofertilizer also we are observing the nature. So in bacterial biofertilizers, we observe whether the bacteria symbiotic nitrogen fixers or free-living nitrogen fixers. The symbiotic nitrogen fixers, the best examples are Rhizobium, Azospirillum species. And algal biofertilizers, mainly the algal belongs to cyanobacteria, blue-green alga in association with Azolla. Maybe the examples of living organisms of the BGA, they are Anabina, Nostoc, Oscillatoria. These are the blue-green algae. Then phosphate solubilizing bacteria, that is Pseudomonas and Bacillus megatherium. Pseudomonas and Bacillus megatherium. And free-living nitrogen bacteria, that free-living nitrogen fixers are Azotobacter and Klebsiella. Then fungal biofertilizers, worm fungi are vesicular, herbaceous, mycorrhizal fungi. Vesicular, herbaceous, mycorrhizal fungi. And the earthworms, then bacterial biofertilizers. The living cells of bacteria used as a biofertilizers. These microbes contain unique gene called NIF gene, which make them capable for fixing nitrogen. My dear friends and my dear delegates and my dear participants and respected participants, the main mechanism is NIF gene, that is nitrogen fixation gene, is present in prokaryotic living organism like bacteria. Nitrogen fixation genes. So these are responsible for the fixation of the atmospheric nitrogen into soil nitrogen. The atmosphere contains highest percentage of the gas, that is 78%, that is nitrogen. The nitrogen fixing bacteria work under two conditions. Number one, symbiotically or free living, non-symbiotic fixation also. The symbiotic bacteria make an association with crop plants through forming root nodules or nodules in the roots. Mainly Fabaceae members or Leguminaceae plants or Leguminaceae family members, we are observed in the Leguminaceae family. They are showing these root nodules, that is Rhizobium leguminaceae bacteria. And the free-living bacteria do not form any association, but the free-living bacteria, they can fix atmosphere by themselves. They may not associate with any other living organism. And here, symbiotic nitrogen fixers. In this image shows the legume root nodules we are observed in this image. Then most of the important symbiotic nitrogen fixing bacteria is Rhizobium leguminosarum and Azospirillum. The Rhizobium leguminosarum lives in the root hairs of the legumes by forming nodules. Plant roots supply essential minerals and newly synthesized substance to the bacteria. The name of Rhizobium was established by Frank in 1889. This genus has 7 distinct species based on the crop inoculation group concept. 7 distinct species based on the crop inoculation group concept. Rhizobium leguminosarum. The more than 20 cross inoculations group have been established. Present, a new classification has been established for Rhizobium. That is slow growing Rhizobium known as Brody Rhizobium, and the other group is fast growing Rhizobia called Rhizobium leguminosarum. Rhizobium leguminosarum. Our Rhizobium leguminosarum belongs to fast growing Rhizobia. Then Brody Rhizobium belongs to slowly growing Rhizobia species. Then this Rhizobium can fix 50 to 300 kg per hectare. 50 to 300 kg per hectare. In this image, the Rhizobium bacteria we are observing in this image also. Then another important symbiotic Rhizobium, that is Azospirilla. This Azospirilla compared to Rhizobium leguminosarum and this Azospirillum is varies because Azospirillum does not associated with leguminaceae members, my dear friends. Only non-leguminous crops like oil seeds and millets and cereals, and even the cotton also, they are associated with Azolla associated with these crops, except legumes. So leguminaceae family members, they are associated with Rhizobium leguminosarum. Azospirillum, mainly present in cereal plants, inhabits both root cells as well as surrounding of the roots, forming symbiotic relation and increasing nitrogen fixing potential of the cereal plants. Azospirillum is recognized as a dominant soil-borne soil microbe. Then nitrogen in the range of 20 to 40 kg per hectare in the rhizosphere in non-leguminous plants such as cereals, millets, oil seeds, and cotton. Then considerable quantity of the nitrogen fertilizers up to 25 to 30% only, but 30% can be saved by the use of Azospirillum inoculants. So these species have been commercially exploited for the use of nitrogen supplying biofertilizers. So these two belongs to symbiotic association nitrogen fixing bacteria. Then what about free living bacteria? The free living bacteria are Azotobacter and Klebsiella. The large number of free living or non-symbiotic bacteria does not form root nodules but makes associated by living in the rhizosphere present in the soil. Commonly, these two species were observed free living nitrogen fixers or nitrogen fixing bacteria. It will not associated with plant, but Azotobacter is a biofertilizer which provides the required amount of nitrogen to the plant from the soil. Then Azotobacter is a heterotrophic free living nitrogen fixing bacteria present in all alkaline and neutral soils, not acidic soils, but alkaline and neutral soils. This Azotobacter is the most commonly occurring species in arable soils in our India. Then apart from its ability to fix atmospheric nitrogen in soils, it can also synthesize growth promoting substance such as auxins and gibberellins, my dear friends. So that's why Azotobacter is very, very important for the inducing or promoting substance, that is auxins or gibberellins by these Azotobacter. And also some extend the vitamins also. So compared to Rhizobium or Azospirillum, this Azotobacter is able to synthesizing for promoting substance like auxins and gibberellins. And many strains of the Azotobacter also exhibit fungicidal properties against certain species of the fungus. So fungicidal properties this Azotobacter able to shows. And even the response of Azotobacter has been seen in rice, maize, cotton, sugarcane, and pearl millet, and vegetable and some of the plantation crops also. It improves seed germination and plant growth. Why we can say it improved seed germination and plant growth? Just because of Azotobacter is induced for the responsible of the synthesis of the auxins and gibberellins. So these auxins and gibberellins, the growth promoting hormones or growth regulators which induce or improve seed germination and also plant growth. Azotobacter is heaviest breathing organism and requires a large amount of organic carbon for its growth. Then how its production? The free-living associated nitrogen fixing bacteria and symbiotic nitrogen fixers we are already studied in previous slides. How its production, mass production. Then the isolated bacterial cultures were subcultures into nutrient broth. The cultures were growth under shaking condition at 30 plus 2 degrees Celsius. The culture incubated until it reaches maximum cell population 10 to the power of 10 to 10 to the power of 11. Under optimum conditions, this population level could be attained with 4 to 5 days for rhizobium, 5 to 7 days for azospirillum, and 6 to 7 days for azotobacter. These are the optimum condition for the population level for the attaining within 4 to 5 days for rhizobium, 5 to 7 days for azospirillum, 6 to 7 days for azotobacter. The culture obtained in the flask is called starter culture. Starter culture. For the large scale production, inoculum from starter culture is transferred into large flasks, fermenter, and grown until required level of cell count it reached. So this is the way how to sequential method we adopt, or we follow this sequential method. Prepare appropriate media for specific to bacterial inoculant in required quantity, and then inoculated with specific bacterial strain for aseptic conditions in the laboratory or within the restricted area. It incubated 30 plus 2 degrees Celsius for 5 to 7 days in rotatory or rotary shaker. Then we observe with our naked eye, or we observe in the microscope some of the content we can taken from that extract, observe growth of the culture and estimate the population starter culture. Then afterwards, the media is prepared in large quantities in fermenter. Then sterilized and cooled well, media in a fermenter is inoculated with the log phase of culture grown in large flask. Usually 1 to 2% of the inoculum is sufficient. Then cells are grown in fermenter by providing aeration and continuous stirring. Both is checked for the population of inoculated organisms. Then afterwards, cells are harvested with the population load of 109 cells per milliliter. Then carrier material. What are the carrier material? The use of the ideal carrier material is necessary for the production of a good quality of the biofertilizer. We are using peat soil or lignite, even though vermiculture, charcoal, pressed mud, and permeate manure and soil mixture are used as a carrier material for this culture. And neutralized peat or soil, lignite are found to be better carrier compared to the remaining materials. Then ideal carrier material should be, then they are in cheaper in cost or low cost, then locally available in our surroundings, in our very nearer or in our regions, very availability. The availability is also very necessary for the ideal carrier. Even the high organic matter content, it should be contain the high organic matter. And also the material or ideal carrier should be no toxic chemical, should not be any toxic chemicals are there. Even though then water holding capacity for more than 50% is necessary for the ideal carrier material. And lastly, then this ideal carrier material should be easily to process, these are the important factors regarding of the ideal, whether the material is ideal carrier for the culture or not, we are decided later. So this is how ideal carrier material they are prepared. Then preparation of inoculum packets. So in this method, the neutralized and sterilized carrier material is spread in a clean or dry sterile material or plastic paper. Then bacterial culture drawn from the fermenter is added to the sterilized carrier and mixed well by manual or mechanical mixture. Then inoculants are packed in a polythene bag sealed with electric sealer. Then what is the specific of the polythene bag? What is the specification of polythene bags? My dear, and one more important notice for the all delegates, and remaining 1 minute, it will close. Please you rejoin at the same Zoom link. After 1 minute, it will close. Then what is the specification of the polythene bags? Polythene bags should be of low density grade. Then thickness, this is the most important criteria for the selection of the polythene bags. Then thickness of the bag should be around 50 to 70 microns. The ideal thickness of the polythene bag, that is the 50 to 75 microns of this polythene bag. Then packet should be marked with the name of the man. Packet, on the packet, this is the information regarding of the ideal carrier, the name, the information related to this ideal carrier, whether the name of the manufacturer and name of the product, then strain number, which type of strain is added, the crops to which recommended, and method of inoculation, and date of manufacture, and batch number. Then date of expiry also important. Then the cost, that is the price, and the full address of the certified companies on the storage instruction also should be specified on the packet of the polythene bag. Okay, this is about the specification of the polythene bags. Then another important biofertilizer, that is the VAM fungi or vesicular herbaciller mycorrhiza. We are observing this image by using of the VAM or without using of the VAM, how rhizosphere, how roots are developed, whether the bunch of the roots are developed, or the low density of the roots, or the length of the roots, even the number of the roots, or the lateral roots also, the content. Then the next one is the next biofertilizer, that is a VAM, vesicular herbaceous mycorrhiza. The term mycorrhiza was taken from the Greek word, the Greek language, which means fungus root. Mycorrhiza means fungus root. The term was coined by Frank in 1885. The mycorrhiza is a mutualistic association between fungal mycelia and plant roots. VAM is an endotrophic. Endo means which is inside the roots, and mycorrhiza formed by acceptated Phycomycetes fungi. The VAM help in nutrient transfer mainly of phosphorus, zinc, and sulfur. So these nutrients are insoluble in nature inside the soil. Whenever the VAM is applied, these phosphorus, zinc, and sulfur is able to insoluble phosphorus and insoluble nutrients to modified or turned into soluble in nature. And the mycorrhiza is the symbiotic association between plant root and soil fungus of the 7 types of the mycorrhiza. VAM plays a great role in inducing plant growth. VAM are symbiotic endophytic soil fungi which colonize the roots of approximately 80% plants. The VAM hyphae also help is retaining moisture around the root zone of plants. It increases the resistance to root-borne or soil-borne pathogen, even though nematode also. So pneumatic helminthes parasites also this is killed by this VAM fungi or vesicular herbaceous mycorrhizal fungi. And we observed in this image how mycorrhiza is inside this mycorrhiza inside their herbacicles and vesicles inside the root anatomy, or we are observed they are also the VAM also mobilize different nutrients like copper, potassium, aluminium, and manganese, iron, and magnesium from the soil to the plant roots. The possess vesicles means sac-like structures for storage of nutrients and herbaceous for funneling them into root system. So in this image, we are observed external hyphae, herbaceous and vesicles. So these are growing inside the root from the cortex to very nearer to the xylem. So these are inside the cortex. They are produce a knob-like structures. They are, we can call as vesicles. We can call as vesicles. Okay, they are, we can call as vesicles. Then the mechanism of action of this VAM fungi or VAM forms an association with plant roots. It penetrates in the root cortex and spreads around the roots of the plants. As the name indicates, they possess sac-like structures called vesicles, which stores phosphorus as phospholipids. The another structure called herbaceous, which helps bringing the distant nutrients to the vesicles and root. So this is the mass production of how the VAM spores isolated. First of all, spores mixed with sterilized soil, then soil filled in pots and host plant transplanted in pots, then kept it to 3 to 4 months in greenhouse. Then automatically the soil in the pot along with the roots of the host plant is macerated. Then dried till it attained the moisture, reached the 5% of moisture. Then afterwards dried soil inoculants used for the field application. And what are the uses regarding of this VAM? This VAM is helpful for the enhance the feeding area of the plant root is the hyphae spreads around the roots. Then which also mobilizes the nutrients from the distance to the root and store the nutrients like phosphorus and removes the toxic chemicals, for example phenolics, which otherwise hinder nutrient availability. And also they provide protection against other fungi and nematodes. It increases growth rate in plants, mainly the citrus, maize, wheat. These are the plants. The plant growth is also increased by this VAM, and it reduces sensitivity of the crop towards the high level of salts and heavy metals like thorium, okay, uranium. These are the heavy metals we are absorbed in the soil. So these heavy metals and even the salts, this is the reducer for the growing of the plant roots. Whenever we are applied the VAM, then automatically VAM is reduce the sensitivity for these salts against and heavy metals also. Then the another biofertilizers area, that is algal biofertilizers. In previous what we are discussed here, number one, bacterial biofertilizers, whether they are symbiotic biofertilizers or free living biofertilizers. Then afterwards, the mycorrhizal fungi, that is VAM fungi. Then this is we can discussing here, that is algae as a biofertilizers. All algae is not used as a biofertilizers. This is only biofertilizers related to only prokaryotic algae, which means cyanophyceae algae or blue-green algae or cyanobacteria, which only responsible for the fixation of the atmospheric nitrogen. Why? Because only the prokaryotic living organism or microbes are having the capability to fixation of the atmospheric nitrogen into the soil by the help of the nitrogenase enzyme, and which is regulated by NIF genes, that is nitrogen fixation genes. Here then these more than 100 species of the beachy or blue-green algae can fix the nitrogen. The nitrogen fixation takes place in specialized cells called heterocysts. So this is the important term in the important part of the trichomes of the blue-green algae. Then beachy is very common in rice field or paddy field unlike Azotobacter, that is the BGA, are not inhibited by the presence of chemical fertilizers. No chemical fertilizers added, inoculation of the algae can result in 10 to 4% increase in crop yields. Without using of the chemical fertilizers, whether we are using the biofertilizers, that is algal biofertilizers or blue-green algae or cyanobacteria, which increase the result 10 to 4% of the increase of the crop yields per hectare. Then they are easy to, the blue-green algae or biofertilizers, they can easy to produce compared to other biofertilizers, because they're usually the mass produced in cement tanks filled with fresh water, not required any processing. So earlier we are mass production, mass processing, we are using different techniques. But here the blue-green algae, very compared to other biofertilizers, the blue-green algal biofertilizers or algal biofertilizers compared to other fertilizers, very quiet and very cheap and not required any processing. And then compared to cost of 10 kg, maybe just 3 to 40 only, the 3 to 40 rupees, Indian rupees only. What are the beneficial in certain crops, like which is very beneficial for the vegetable crops, and cotton, even the sugarcane also. And some of the algal biofertilizers are Anabina, Nostoc, Oscillatoria. This image related to Nostoc we are observed. Then another most important biofertilizer, that is Azolla as a biofertilizer. Azolla belongs to a water fern, that is a pteridophytic aquatic fern, that is Azolla. So this Azolla is a tiny fresh fern common in ponds and ditches, even though rice field. So which is very useful for the growing or applying for the paddy field. Why? Because this Azolla is a water fern, aquatic fern. That's why very easily grown in the paddy field. And it has been used as a biofertilizer for a rice in all major rice growing countries, including the different countries like India, Thailand, Korea, and Philippines, Brazil, and West Africa also. And the nitrogen fixing work is accomplished by the symbiotic relationship between the fern and even though BGA. This Azolla contain Anabina. Anabina species is lived inside the association with Azolla. So that's why the species we can call as Anabina azollae. This in addition to nitrogen, the decomposed Azolla is also provides potassium, phosphorus, zinc, even the fern to the crop field. And this is the water fern. We are naked. We are observed with the naked eye, stagnant pond, and very nearer to the water bodies of our very nearby ponds. And this Azolla biomass gets doubted within 5 to 7 days by vegetative methods, fixed 40 to 80 kg nitrogen hectare per annum. Even this is a good manner for flooded rice also. Why? Because this is the aquatic fern. Whether it is moves along with the water, it will stagnate or attach to the very nearest to the paddy crop plants also. So that's why, even though this is very applicable for the flooded rice also, and it is increase of the crop yield up to 15 to 20% has been observed while the fertilizing the rice with Azolla. Even hybrids are growing faster, the tolerant to heat and cold, and which is very easy to fix 4 to 5% more nitrogen also. Then what are the application methods of these biofertilizers? How to apply for these biofertilizers? There are 3 ways for the applying for this nitrogen fixing bacteria. That is seed treatment, first method. The second method is root tipping. The third one is soil applications. These are the 3 methods for applying for these biofertilizers. Number 1, the first method is seed treatment. In the seed treatment is the most common method adopted for all types of the inoculant. The seed treatment is very effective and economic compared to the remaining 2 methods. In this seed treatment with Rhizobium, Azotobacter, and Azospirillum along with the PSM, seed treatment can be done with any of 2 or more bacteria. no side effects were observed. And important things has the seeds must be coated first with Rhizobium or Azotobacter or Azospirillum. When each seeds get a layer of above bacteria, then the PSM inoculant has to treat an outer layer of the seeds. So compared to other methods, seed treatment is very, very easy and very effective method for applying of our biofertilizers. And this method will provide maximum number of the population of each bacteria required for the better results. And mixing the anyway two bacteria and the treatment of seed will not provide maximum number of bacteria individuals. And the second method of this applying of these biofertilizers, that is root dipping. In this root dipping, application of the Azospirillum, whether we are using the specific bacterium, that is Azospirillum, with the paddy vegetable plants, this method is needed. So the paddy and vegetable plants, this root dipping method, we are definitely adopting of this type of cultivated crops. The required quantity of the Azospirillum has to be mixed with 5 to 10 liters of the water at one corner of the field, and all the plants have to kept maximum half an hour before sowing of the plants. And the third method of the application of the biofertilizers, that is soil application. In this method, the PSM has been used as a soil application. Use 2 kgs of PSM per acre mixed with PSM with 400 to 600 kgs of cowding, along with a half bag of the rock phosphate if available. Otherwise, the mixture of PSM, cowding and rock phosphate have to be kept under any tree shade or ceiling for overnight and maintain 50% of the moisture. Use the mixture as a soil application in rows or during the leveling of the soil. And before applying these biofertilizers, some of the precautions we should taken. The first one is store biofertilizer packets in cool and dry place, away from direct sunlight and heat. So this is the first precautions for before applying the biofertilizer. And the second one is use right combination of biofertilizers. So whether we are using one more time or 2 or 3 more combinations, just we have to take the suggestion from the nearest agriculture officer or nearest agriculture extension officers, better way to we are applying these biofertilizers. Even the Rhizobium is crop specific. Rhizobium is a crop specific. Rhizobium is a crop specific, so use in specified crop. Do not mix with chemicals. So this is very, very important. Whenever we are applying the Rhizobium biofertilizers, we don't mix any other chemicals. So this is and also specified crop. We can use specified crops only, Rhizobium leguminosarum or Rhizobium biofertilizers, and use the packet before expiry only on the specified crop by the recommended method only. Recommended method. And what are the advantages? What are the advantages of the biofertilizers? The renewable source. So biofertilizers are the renewable source of the nutrients, sustaining the soil health. And supplement chemicals. Chemical fertilizers replace 25 to 30%. Chemical fertilizers increase the grain yields by 10 to 40%. 10 to 40% of the yield. And decompose plant residue and stabilize carbon nitrogen ratio of soil, improve the texture, structure and water holding capacity of the soil. No adverse effect on plant growth and soil fertility. So this is these are the related to our biofertilizers. Then the biofertilizer stimulates the plant growth by secreting growth hormones like auxins and gibberellins, and which is also secretes the fungistatic and antibiotic-like substances. Antibiotic-like substances, and solubilize and mobilize nutrients. Where majority of the nutrients they are insoluble in nature. These biofertilizers very easily, the insoluble nature to soluble nature, and very easily accessing of the rhizosphere of the plants. And these biofertilizers are eco-friendly, and remember, these are non-pollutants. These are no side effects, and they are eco-friendly and very, even though these are the cost-effective method. So these are the advantages of the biofertilizers. And along with these advantages, some of the disadvantages we are observed. They are biofertilizers require special care for long-term storage because they are alive. Why? Because these biofertilizers contain living organisms or microorganisms. So that's why they have a specified term, the specific time or expiry date is there. Must be expiry date because they are alive in nature. If other microorganisms contaminate, because they are the living organisms, microorganisms. So that's why the other organisms or other microorganisms contaminate the carrier medium, or if grows use the wrong strains, they are not in effective manner. So biofertilizers lost their effectiveness if the soil is too hot or too dry. Whenever the soil is wet condition, the biofertilizers are more effectively usable. Otherwise, which is in lost their effectiveness also. So this is about the biofertilizers. Along with these biofertilizers, we are day-to-day life, we are absorbing in the contemporary scenario, that is organic farming. The another important, that is organic farming. Before going to this organic farming, I am requesting you, all the participants, if you have any doubt related to biofertilizers, please ask me, I will clarify. If otherwise, I will continue this organic farming. Okay, then organic farming. Organic farming is a very important topic or important term, which is a framing system to grow crop with avoiding or excluding the synthetic fertilizers or herbicides and pesticides is called organic farming. Organic farming. So what are the components of this organic farming? What are the components related to this organic farming? In this organic farming, we are absorbed the fertilizers management, weed control, and insect, pest and disease control. Integrated insect, pest and disease control. So these are the major components of organic farming. Okay, so fertilizer management, weed control, and insect, pest and disease control. These are the major components of the organic farming. The first one is fertilizer management. First one is fertilizer management. In this fertilizer management, world population is increasing day by day. So food and fiber needed also very rapidly growing population. Also increase with population. Is with the passage of time. To fulfill the requirements of the population should need high yield that is possible by increasing cultivated area or yield. To get high yield, fertilizers are applied to provide nutrients to croplands. By using fertilizers, land, water, air is polluted that cause serious diseases in human beings and also animals or entire living organisms. So to avoid these problems, organic farming plays a vital role in the present scenario. Then the second one is in this one, first one is the manures. So manures are the organic material derived from the animals, human and plants residues, which contain plant nutrients in complex organic forms. Manure can be grouped into bulky organic manures and concentrated organic manures. Bulky organic manures and concentrated organic manures. So first one is bulky organic manures. So these bulky organic manures contain a small percentage of nutrients and they are applied in large quantity. So these bulky organic manures are farmyard manure and shipyard and goat manure and poultry manure, even the green manure. So we are going to discuss each and every one, whether the farmyard manure, sheep and goat manure, we are going to discuss here. The first one is farmyard manure. In this FIM means farmyard manure. This farmyard manure refers to the decomposed mixture of dung and urine of farm animals along with litter left over. The quantity of nutrients in manures varies with the type of animal feed, composition and quality and quantity of bedding material, length of storage and storage conditions. A typical application of 20 of farmyard manure from housed organic cattle will contain 150 kg of nitrogen, 35 kg of the phosphorus and 140 kg of potassium. So this is NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium content. This contain 150 kg of nitrogen, 150 kg of nitrogen and 35 kg of phosphorus and 140 kg of potassium. The second one is that is sheep and goat manure. So dropping of sheep and goats contain higher nutrients than farmyard manure and composts. On average, the manures contain 3% of nitrogen, 1% of phosphorus and 20.5% of the potassium. So this is about sheep and goat manure. Sheep and goat manure. So we are observed in our day-to-day life, very near in our neighboring or along with the roads, we are observed the goat and sheep manure. Then third one is, that is the next one is the crop residues. Crop residues. In these crop residues can be an important source of nutrients to subsequent crops. It is well documented that different quantities of nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium and minor nutrients are removed from and returned to the soil depending on the crop species concerned. The quantity and quality of crop residues will clearly influence the buildup of soil organic matter. Soil organic matter. So this is the different crop residues. Whenever after separating of the crop, after separating of the seeds or even the flowers, different parts of the plants, we are used as a crop residues. Okay, the next one is poultry. Next one is poultry. Next one is poultry. In this poultry, please unmute yourself. Then in this poultry manure, it ferment very quickly. 50% of its nitrogen is lost in 30 days. If we are unable to use within the 30 days, 50% of the nitrogen we are lost. The nitrogen is liberated as a gas content. And it contains 3.03% of the nitrogen and 2.63% of the phosphorus and phosphorus pentoxide and 1.4% of the potassium oxide. So these are the nutrients contain this poultry manure. And the next one is the green manure. Pachirota eruvu antam. So in this green manure, many crops are grown and at a vegetative stage mix up in the soil, just improve the organic matter of the soil at a vegetative stage. These crops are easily decomposed in soil and work like inorganic fertilizers due to having low carbon nitrogen ratio. We are observed before sowing of the rice or in the rice field, we are absorbed or we are using of this green manure like in the Fabaceae members like Jeeluga, Janumu, Pilli pesara, these are the plants, these are the seeds we can utilize or used as a green manure. They are growing at the vegetative level after mix of the soil, and it will going to decompose, and it gives rise used as a manure or green manure. And it also used as a inorganic fertilizers due to having the low carbon nitrogen ratio. So this is the green manure, how it's utilized in our crop fields. The next one is the concentrated organic manures. They have higher nutrients contents than bulky organic manures. They have oil cakes, compost, and biofertilizers. Even though the previous what we are discussed, the biofertilizers are included in the concentrated organic manures also. That's why organic farming is a most important topic today scenario. So now oil cake. The first one is oil cake. In this oil cake, after oil is extracted of different oil seeds like groundnut and like gingerly or like different oil palms, the remaining solid portion is dried as a soil cake, which is used as a manure. So this oil cake is also very essential nutrients for the plants after extraction of the oil. And even though Rajendra Nagar Agriculture University and related to very near to the Jagitial Polasa Center, they are also adopting for this oil cake used as a manure. Even though from this oil cake, then the another residues like oil, another second grade oil is also extracting from this oil cake for the using of the puja oil or remaining lubricants like lubricants oil also. And also it is very low cost oil also. So that is another most important scenario. But here oil cake is used as a organic compost or organic manure. And compost, the compost is the mass of a rotten organic matter made from waste is called compost. This compost may be farm compost or town compost. Compost may be farm compost and town compost. And the biofertilizers. Already we are discussed in previous session or in this today's webinar. It is defined as a preparation containing living cells like bacteria or fungi or algal biofertilizers or aquatic firm, and which is used as a nitrogen fixing and phosphorus solubilizing and phosphorus mobilizing and plant growth promoters like auxin and gibberellins. They are used as a biofertilizers. And the another important point related to this organic farming, that is crop rotation. So this is very, very important for the controlling of the disease and pest management system, and this is very useful for the control of the natural controlling system of the pest management or pest or disease controlling method. These organic rotations are divided into phases that increase the level of soil nitrogen and phases that deplete it. The nitrogen building and depleting phases must be in balance. So rotation can also be designed to minimize the spread of weeds and pests, spread of the weeds and pests and diseases. So here, this is the crop rotation method, how we are rotating of our crops in the crop field. So 1 year or first time, one season or Rabi season, or even though the Kharif season, we are using one of the crop plant like a legume plants, beans, peas, and other related to crop fields. Then afterwards, the root related plants like carrots and radishes and turnips, even the beetroots, and even though some of the stem modified stems like onions and garlic, these are root crops. So whenever after legumes, whenever we are applying or whenever you are using the crop rotation method, the crop yield is also increased, and also we are lesser utility of the manure. Why? Because legumes contain Rhizobium leguminosum bacteria, which is used as a biofertilizer and which is fixed the atmospheric nitrogen into the soil, and it will help the growing of the next crop plant very easily and very rapidly, and yield is also increased. So this is the crop rotation method. And afterwards, the fruit yielding varieties or fruit yielding crops plants we can cultivated in the same area. That is the tomatoes or cucumbers and peppers and some of the squash related to plants were cultivated in the same land afterwards. And afterwards, the leafy vegetables like lettuce and green herbs and spinach and brassicas and the corns. And so these are the crops, or whenever we are using the rotation method, the yield is also increased. Even although soil health is also increased by the utilization of the nutrition is also varies from the crop to one crop to another crop. So whenever we are cultivating the legume plants, the plants need not to utilize the nutrients from the soil, because the root nodules contain Rhizobium leguminosum. This is fixation of the atmospheric nitrogen to the roots, and which is helpful for the fast growing or rapid growing of the crops. So that is the method. Whenever we are applying this crop rotation method, it is very minimize the weeds and minimize the spreading of the weeds, even though pests and diseases also. Why? Because some of the diseases of the soil-borne vegetable, soil-borne diseases, the soil-borne diseases are only infect only the specific plants. Like for example, Cercospora personata, which is the Deuteromycetes fungi, which is infect only groundnut and the disease called Thika disease or leaf spot disease, which is only soil-borne. Whenever the soil-borne disease, which is only related to infect the groundnut. Whenever we are rotating the crop or other crops, or whenever we are applying, then automatically the disease is controlled by the naturally. So this is the crop rotation method. And the second one is the weed management. Weed management. So weeds can decrease the yield of a crop up to 60%. So we are knowingly or unknowingly, our farmers are uneducated or illiterates. They are lost their yields of the crop by these weeds. So whenever the weeds are killed by herbicides that cause pollution and resistance to the crop plant. In organic farming system, weeds are controlled by these methods. Number one, allelopathy, rotation method, and organic mulching, and the last one is the integrated weed control. So these are the methods for the organic farming for the weed control. So we are going to discuss each and every one. So first one is allelopathy. First one is allelopathy. In this allelopathy method, crops having allelochemicals can be used as growth promoters and also for weed control through number one, use of mulch of these crops. Number two, use these crops in rotation. The third one is the use these crops in intercropping or mixing. మిశ్రమ పంటలుగా మనం చెప్పుకుంటాం. So the intercropping and use crops extract as foliar sprays by incorporate plant tissues in soils. The second one is crop rotation. So use of legumes crops that provide nutrients by biological nitrogen fixation or diazotrophy. Use of allelopathic crops that suppress the growth of weeds. Then continuous monoculture is unacceptable due to the like diseases as well as the difficulties of maintaining soil fertility, increased pressure from weeds and pests. Weeds, pests, and the next one is organic mulching or organic mulch. organic mulch. In this organic mulching, then organic residues like grass clippings and leaves, hair and straws, even the shredded bark and old bark, animal manure. So these are using for organic mulching. In this organic mulches are temporary decay over time. Temporary decay over time. They add our crop, they add organic matter in soil and increase water retention capacity of the soil, and which is also provide the nutrients, whether the micronutrients or macronutrients. And my dear delegates here, this method or organic mulching suppress the weeds. Whenever this mulching method, the shady area, the weeds are unable to grow. So this is the organic mulching method. Organic mulching method. And the next one is integrated weed control. Integrated weed control. In this integrated weed control, we are adopt two methods. One is indirect method. The second one is direct method. The indirect method, we are using preventive methods and cultural methods. And direct methods, we are applying manual methods, mechanical methods, and biological control. Indirect method consists preventive methods and cultural methods. And direct methods, we are applying number one, manual method, and second one is the mechanical methods, and third one is biological control. See here in this slide we are observed, this is the mechanical, this is the manual methods for the weed control. In this manual method, we are picking the weeds in the crop field by hands. That is manual methods. And the second one is mechanical methods by ploughing. See here, this is the second image shows related to mechanical methods, and the third one is biological control. The third one is biological control. And one more important notice to all delegates: please all you rejoin immediately. So this is the within 1 minute it will close the session, and please rejoin immediately. Okay, and in this method, indirect method and direct method, both the method in this weed control, integrated weed control, we are using or applying indirect methods and direct method. Indirect method consists preventive methods and cultural methods. Direct method consists of manual method, mechanical method, and biological method. In this slide, we are observing this is the manual method, and this is the mechanical method, and this is the biological method. And last one is insect, pest, and disease management. This is the last slide related to our organic farming. This is the last slide related to our organic farming. In this organic farming, it includes, in this insect, pest, and disease management control, it includes agronomic practices, mechanical control, and biological control, genetic control, and natural plant products like allelochemicals. So these are the methods we are using for the control of the management. This is the integrated pest management. So this include prevention, monitoring, treatment, and training. So these are the methods using this is integrated pest management. So in this method we are adopt, which is very useful for our nearer to surrounding. So all methods are not adopted in each and every area. So our region or our area, which one is suitable for the management or weed control management or pest management or pest control management, we are adopt any one method or two methods, whichever useful. Okay. So next one is that is the last important important topic, that is sustainable agriculture. Nowadays we are running, or we are very rapidly we are observing in the society whenever we are intaking of the food material, all food grains contain the different very harmful substances, very harmful chemical substances. Unknowingly or unknowingly, we are intaking with the food material. In the process of biomagnification, in the process of biological magnification, these pests or other chemical substances reach our body, and it will infect our internal body or internal organs, or very important organs is going to damage, and we are going to affect of the illness, are going to damage, or even the mutations process of our genetic process also, my dear friends and my dear delegates. So that's why the sustainable agriculture is very, very important scenario. The sustainable agriculture is the practice of farming using principles of ecology and the study of relationship between organism and their environment, in our surroundings, with our surroundings, in our individual surroundings, even though the institutional surrounding and the entire organism and their environment is also necessary for this sustainable agriculture. And this form of agriculture enables us to produce healthful food without compromising future generations' ability to do the same. So this is the main aim of the sustainable agriculture. And what is the objective of this sustainable agriculture? To satisfy human food and fiber needs, make the most efficient use of non-renewable resources on farm resource, and integrate where appropriate. They sustain the economic viability of farm operations, enhance the quality of life for farmers and society as a whole. So this is the most important objectives related to our sustainable agriculture. And what are the benefits of sustainable agriculture? And the primary benefits of sustainable agriculture are: number one, environmental preservation. So eco-friendly. So sustainable farming produce crops and raise animals without relying on toxic chemical, pesticides, synthetic fertilizers, genetically modified seeds or GMO. We can call as GMO seeds or genetically modified organisms, are practices that degrade soil, even the water or other natural resources. So this is the first and foremost the benefit. And even the second one, then that is protection of public health and hygiene. In this scenario, since sustainable crop farms avoid hazardous pesticides, they are able to grow fruits, vegetables that are safer for consumers, workers, and surrounding communities also. For future better citizens, this is the most important point. Likewise, sustainable livestock farmers and ranchers raise animals without dangerous practices like non-therapeutic antibiotic or arsenic-based growth. And third one is the sustaining vibrant communities. Sustain vibrant communities. A critical component of sustainable agriculture is its ability to remain economically available, economically viable, providing farmers, farm workers, food processors, and other employed in the food system with a livable wage and safe, fair working conditions. So this is the most important. And the fourth one is upholding animal welfare. So animals is associated with our life, day-to-day life activities. So animal welfare is also most important in the sustainable agriculture. So sustainable farmers and ranchers treat animals with care and respect, implementing livestock, animal husbandry practices that protect animal health and well-being. So please don't write any on the screen, my dear friends and delegates. And what are the trends related to in this scenario or in this method? In this scenario, on the onset of the industrial age brought about various trends that have led us to our present state. The quick rise in population, more people to feed. The greater need of production, farmer requires to produce more. The increase in urbanization process, less farms to do more work. So widespread ecological impacts, faith in technological, political and economical fixtures. So today, less developed countries are following a similar trend. Many farmers in these countries choose to grow cash crops rather than subsistence crops. Then region relation upon cash crops tend to develop adverse and long-term environmental problems. So cash crops is very compared to subsistence crops, quite a difference we are observed. How to affect on the environment. Then negative impacts. What are the negative impacts? What are the negative impacts in the sustainable agriculture? Our current mass production style for farming has resulted in numerous negative side effects. Number one, environmental damages. Number one, environmental damages. Number one, environmental damages. What are the environmental damages? Number one, reduced biodiversity, habitat destruction, deforestation, water, air and soil pollution, and salinization, desertification, and decline in water resources and land subsistence. So these are the environmental damages. Environmental damages. And the second one is human impacts. In these human impacts, farm land restrictions and damage to soil fertility by the human, reduced nutritional value of the food, and decreased economic and social and cultural values. For the past several years, research has looked at sustainable agriculture as a potential solution to correct and prevent these problems. These are the negative impacts. Why the negative impacts? For today and current scenario, the sustainable agriculture is very important. And sustainable agriculture was addressed by Congress in the Food Agriculture Conservation and Trade Acts in 1990. Under that law, the term sustainable agriculture means an integrated system of plant and animal production practices having a site-specific application that will, over the long term, satisfy human food and fiber needs, enhance environmental quality and the natural resources base upon which the agriculture economy depends, make the most efficient use of non-renewable resources and on-farm resources, and integrate where appropriate natural biological cycles and control, sustain the economic viability of farm operations, enhance the quality of life for farmers and society as a whole. And what is the goal of this sustainable agriculture? The goal of this sustainable agriculture is to minimize adverse impact to the immediate and of our environment while providing a sustained level of production of profits. And inherent to this goal is to understanding that sustainability must be extended not only globally but indefinitely time and to all living organisms, including human beings. Simply stated, sustainable agriculture refers to the ability to farm to produce food indefinitely without causing irreversibly or without causing damage to ecosystem health. ecosystem health. This Venn diagram shows about the sustainable agriculture, economically viability, environmentally friendly, that is eco-friendly and socially acceptable, and without damaging or without causing irreversible for the ecosystem health. And what are the traditional methods for this sustainable agriculture? Water harvesting and rainfall. Today, 80% of the crop production worldwide relies on rainfall. And Mesoamerican farmers are often looked upon as proof of past functioning sustainable agriculture systems, that is crop rotation method, natural fertilizers, raised fields, terraces, irrigation canals, even swamps and lakes, home gardens, even though now roof gardens also we are absorbed, roof gardens, and tree cultures. So these are the traditional methods. And today, which type of methods we are applying or absorbed in day-to-day life? Today, sustainable farming practices commonly include as number one, crop rotation, pest control strategies, and soil and water conservation practices also. Crop rotation methods, we can also, we are already discussed in earlier, that is mitigate weeds, disease, insect and other pest problems and provide alternative sources for soil nitrogen, reduce soil erosion and reduce risk of water contamination by agriculture chemicals. And pest control or management control strategies that are not harmful for the natural ecosystem, and also our people, which include techniques that reduce the need for pesticides by practice such as scouting, use of resistant cultivars, timing of planting, and biological pest control. That is biopest control method, and which is increased mechanical or biological weed control. Soil and water conservation practices includes strategic use of animal and green manures, use of natural or synthetic inputs in a way that process and poses no significant hazards to man and animal or the environment or entire ecosystem. This sustainable agriculture consists, number one, crop rotation keep the soil healthy, and mixed farms allows the uses of livestock manure and conserving natural areas protect our environment, and small changes in practices can help rather than harm the environment. And grass-fed livestock control weed without chemical or mowing, and science can determine the right amount of fertilizers and pesticides. Farming removes nutrients and fertilizers can manure replace them. And farming multiple crops allows farmers to reduce their financial risk by having multiple products to sell. And what are the rules and regulations for implementing the sustainable agriculture? While the goal of sustainable agriculture is similarly defined by numerous organizations, that is USDA, organic substances, organic farming, that is, there are no strictly defined rules or regulations for these farmers to abide by. There are standards and certifications for organic farming which has similarities to sustainable agriculture, but the two not synonymous. Then what are the differences between organic versus sustainable? Organic farming excludes the use of synthetic inputs such as synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and genetically modified organisms, that is GMOs, whereas sustainable agriculture does not. But sustainability aims to balance between what is taken out of the soil with what is written to it, and without relying on outside inputs. This is not necessarily a concern of organic farming. So this is the differences organic versus sustainable. And organic farms constitute only a small percent of farmers with a minor impact on the environment. Sustainable agriculture aims to make positive changes on all farms. In the future, large organic farms that rely on machinery and automation and purchase inputs will have similar sustainability use issues that large conventional farms do today. And political and economics. So this is the most show impacts on the sustainable agriculture. Negative impacts. What are the negative impacts? In this negative impacts, sustainable development is constrained by economic growth. The transition from conventional to sustainable farming is usually costly based. And remember, development is viewed as coinciding with consumption. So whenever the developing is rapidly, then consumption is also rapidly. So there are vast international inequalities of resources or consumption, making it hard for many to farm effectively. So that is vary from country to country and state to state and the area to area. And enforcement of environmental regulations may be blocked by political and economical advances. Here, the environmental laws and environmental acts, 1972 Wildlife Protection Act, 1992 Project Tiger, 1993 Project Elephant, and other pollution acts and other environmental acts also there. But that environment act regulations may be blocked by political bias, even though economical advances. So these are the negative impacts. And what are the positive impacts of the political, economical positive impacts on the sustainable agriculture? Even though negative impacts and impacts positive also we are observed in the sustainable agriculture. So economic incentives may be used to encourage the use of more environmentally friendly or eco-friendly farming techniques and technologies. And sustainable practices can save farmers money because of the reduced need to buy pesticides, even though chemicals and herbicides and pests also, even though fertilizers. Sustainable farms tend to have multiple crops, leading to both financial security and sustainable for the farmer. Laws, both local and global laws, could enforce protective standards. And last one is education of environmental situation may help farmers to make better choices. So this is about sustainable agriculture. And before conclude, I would like to acknowledge to respected organizers of Government Degree College, Gambiropet, Rajanna Sirisilla, Telangana, the important topic, that is important topic they are selected, that is biofertilizers and organic farming for sustainable agriculture. I'm very much thankful to today's webinar chairperson and principal of Government Degree College, Gambiropet, Sri Pitla Das Garu, my beloved brother, and principal chairperson of this webinar. I'm very much thankful to today's convener, today's national webinar convener, Srimati Bojja Srivalli, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, Government Degree College, Gambiropet, Rajanna Sirisilla. And also, I would like to thankful to organizing secretaries B. Praveen Kumar sir, Y. Anjaneyulu sir, and B. Srinivas sir, and all the faculty of Government Degree College, Gambiropet, teaching and non-teaching staff also for cooperating and conducting for this national webinar for on biofertilizers and organic farming for sustainable agriculture. And also, I would like to thank to my professor, Dr. T. Christopher Ruben, Kakati University, retired, and also my lab mates, Dr. Gandu Rajender, Dr. Korra Rajender, Dr. Prasad sir, Srinivas sir, and Srikanth, and Deepika madam, and Sanjeevaya sir, and Srimati Sujata madam, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, Government Degree College for Women, Karimnagar. And also, I would like to thank my principal, Government Degree College for Women, Jagityal, Sri Malaram Srinivas Reddy sir, and my Department of Botany, Srimati Sandhya Rani Madam Garu, and IQAC coordinator, academic coordinator, entire faculty of my college and teaching and non-teaching faculty of my college. I'm very much thankful to thankful to them for cooperating for this national webinar. I'm thankful to you and each and every participant of the different states of our country and delegates, respected delegates. I am very much thankful to you for your kind attention. Please ask me if you have any question.
Direct sir, question please.
And before conclude, I would like to quote one of the quote given by important quote given by our Bharat Ratna, Bharat Ratna, and our former president of our India, India, that is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. The quote is, the best brains of the nation may be, the best brains of the nation may be found in the last bench of the classroom. So this quote is very, very useful for all the students among the four walls in the classroom. So this is my last slide. If you have any doubt, please ask. Okay, thank you very much, madam. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. A wonderful session delivered by you, sir. Really, really very, very informative. So you have covered every corner of this topic, including different types of biofertilizers like bacteria, algal bacteria, biofertilizers, fungal biofertilizers, and biofertilizers, applications methods, seed treatment, root dipping, soil applications, and what are the precautions we have to take when applying biofertilizers, and advantages and disadvantages of biofertilizers. We knew many new things in organic farming, sir. Very, very informative. The components of the organic farming, like fertilizers management, in that manures, different types of manures, poultry manure, green manure, organic manures, oil cakes components, biofertilizers, crop rotation, then weed control, in that controlled by allelopathy, etc. You have delivered excellent information. Then insects, pests, and disease management, and a detailed study about sustainable agriculture. So a wonderful session given by you, sir. Thank you, sir. It is very much useful to students as well as all the participants. Thank you, sir.
Madam, excuse me. Before one more important feedback from shared, madam.
Yes,
feedback.
Sir.
Feedback
I have sent, sir.
Sent in chat box. Okay. All the participants are requested to please fill the feedback form for getting online certificate, webinar certificate, and this is very, very much useful for enhance of my knowledge, and also modify or any transformation or any metamorphosizing of my knowledge. And this is my knowledge sharing in front of you, and you have this information, but I am also sharing my views and knowledge in front of you. Please, all of you, fill the feedback form. Thank you, madam. Please continue.
Okay, sir. Now I request to the participants to say any feedback in this session. Okay, sir. Now I request our chemistry lecturer and IQAC coordinator, Sri B. Ravin Kumar, sir. Sir, please convey the vote of thanks to our participants and our session. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this opportunity. First of all, I would like to congratulate to the organizer, Madam Srivalli Madam Garu, for arranging the beautiful webinar. And I hope it is very much informative to all the participants. And at the outset, I would like to thank you so much, sir, Padala Tirupati Garu, our keynote speaker, today's webinar keynote speaker. And I know he is an eminent researcher from our state. Not only, actually, he is well known to uh, every corner of the country. As of today, when I have seen his biodata, really, I was very shocked by seeing his biodata and by his degrees. Sir, really, we are very much thankful on behalf of our college, on behalf of our principal and organizing committee, on behalf of our students also. I wish a very good luck for your further research and further your research activities also. And I would like to thank once again on behalf of all the organizing committee to each and every participant also for registered to this national webinar. Thank you very much. Once again, I thank Sri Padala Tirupati Garu for accepting this, for accepting and giving this webinar as a keynote speaker. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. By this, we are concluding. Thank you, each and every participants, each and every student and researchers. Thank you.
బాగా